The Legend of Zelda doesn't treat death like most franchises. Dying isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a completely different one. And today, we're breaking down every spirit in the series, from the bottom to the very top. Poes. Poes are the ghosts that nobody cares about, and that's exactly the point. They wander graveyards and ruins across nearly every Zelda game, carrying lanterns that literally contain their own souls. No names, no backstories, just floating, glowing targets waiting to be collected. In Ocarina of Time, 10 big Poes roam Hyrule Field, each worth 50 rupees when you bottle their soul and sell it. In Twilight Princess, 60 imp Poes are scattered across the entire world, and you hunt them in wolf form, rip out their souls, and trade them for rewards. Which is, not ideal for the Poes. Here's the thing. Poes have zero unfinished business. Zero identity. Their souls get bottled and sold like potions. They represent the absolute lowest tier of spiritual existence in Zelda. Ghosts stripped of everything that makes a ghost interesting. But that's what makes them the perfect starting point. Because every spirit after this actually has a story, a regret, and something worth haunting for. Starting with a Gravekeeper who got way more interesting after he died. Dampé, the Gravekeeper. Dampé is one of those characters who shouldn't be interesting, but absolutely is. He runs the Kakariko village graveyard in Ocarina of Time, sleeping during the day, pacing the graves at night, and he's said to have the power to speak with the dead, which is, not ideal for a guy whose entire job is burying them. If you catch him at night, you can pay 10 rupees for his heart-pounding grave digging tour, which is basically a slot machine with a shovel. Every dig is random. You might pull a green rupee, you might pull a heart piece. The odds aren't in your favor, but that's the point. Gambling in a graveyard. Classic Hyrule entertainment. But here's where it gets weird. After Dampé dies, he shows up as a ghost in his own grave. You race him through an underground passage, and if you win, he hands you the hookshot. A dead man casually giving away one of the most important items in the game. Nobody questions this, and then he keeps showing up. The Minish Cap, a link between worlds. Different eras, same job, same guy. The series never clarifies whether that's reincarnation or some graveyard-bound archetype. He's a ghost who seems perfectly fine being a ghost, which makes him one of the strangest characters in the whole franchise. But if you think a content ghost is unsettling, wait until you meet the one defined entirely by regret over a dance routine. Kamaro. Most ghosts in Zelda have dramatic reasons for sticking around. They died protecting someone, or they're guarding an ancient secret, or they've been cursed by some malevolent force. Kamaro died because he never got to show anyone his dance moves. That's it. That's the unfinished business. Choreography. He appears in Termina Field between midnight and 4 a.m. on the first or second day, dancing alone on top of a mushroom-shaped tree in the moonlight. No audience, no applause. Just a dead man performing for nobody, consumed by the regret that he never passed his art on to another living soul. And here's the thing. Link doesn't fight him, doesn't solve a puzzle. He plays the Song of Healing, which seals Kamaro's talent inside a mask. And then Link walks up to the Rosa sisters at night and performs the dance himself. The sisters learn the moves, reward Link with a piece of heart, and just like that, a dead man's creative legacy lives on. No swords, no boss arena. Just a kid in a mask doing someone else's dance so the world doesn't lose it forever. It's Zelda at its most quietly devastating, and honestly, it's more emotionally complex than half the boss fights in the series. But if a single dancer's ghost hit that hard, wait until you hear about an entire haunted vessel drifting through fog, the Ghost Ship. Every other entry on this list is a person, a spirit with a name, a story, a reason they're still hanging around. The Ghost Ship in Phantom Hourglass doesn't care about any of that. It's not a character, it's a location. A fog-covered, self-navigating vessel drifting through the northwestern sea that you can't even find without following a trio of spirit fairies who freak out when you're heading the right direction. And once you're inside, it gets worse. The ship is crawling with Poes launching blue fireballs at you and Reaplings wielding scythes that literally cannot be killed. You can stun them. That's it, they get back up. The only safe spots are designated zones that work like the Temple of the Ocean King, which is not exactly a comforting comparison. But here's where it gets genuinely creepy. The ghost ship houses the Cubist sisters, a family of 4 trapped inside with zero explanation for why they're there. No backstory, no curse origin, no ancient evil that locked them in. They're just there, confined to a ship that sails itself through endless fog, and the game never tells you why. It's Zelda doing a straight-up ghost story and then refusing to give you the resolution, which is, not ideal. But if a haunted ship with no answers unsettles you, wait until you hear about 2 brothers who composed music for the royal family and never stopped, even after they died. The composer, brothers, Sharp and Flat, are 2 deceased Poe brothers who served the royal family of Hyrule as composers. Flat will tell you straight up that every song connected to the royal family was composed by him and his brother, every single one. These two wrote the soundtrack to Hyrule's monarchy, then died, and got trapped in a tomb for their trouble. Here's where it gets interesting. The composer brothers aren't cursed despite their art. They're cursed by it. Their own music is the thing binding them to the afterlife. Sharp is afflicted by a curse, and the only way to break it is through a song that Flat composed specifically to save him, the Song of Storms. Yeah, one of the most iconic pieces of music in the entire Zelda franchise was born from a ghost desperately trying to rescue his brother. Not some grand magical ritual, not a gift from the gods. A dead composer writing one last song because his brother was suffering and he couldn't do anything else. What makes this fascinating is that it's basically the inverse of Camaro's situation. Camaro's art was his unfinished business. For Sharp and Flat, their art is the prison. Music is simultaneously what trapped them and what sets them free. Their liberation doesn't come from defeating some monster. It comes from playing the right notes. But if you think a pair of cursed composers is tragic, wait until you meet the Goron hero who died trying to save his entire tribe. Darmani III. Darmani III was the greatest warrior the Gorons ever had, possible heir to the throne, the strongest, the toughest, the one everyone believed would save them. And he failed. When an unending winter swallowed Snowhead and threatened to freeze his entire tribe to death, Darmani did what any hero would do. He marched up the mountain to fix it himself, and the mountain killed him, the strongest Goron who ever lived, and it still wasn't enough, which is, not ideal. When Link finds his spirit, there's actually a debate about whether Darmani is already dead or just dying. Either way, the Song of Healing seals his soul into the Goron mask, and this is where things get genuinely heavy. Because unlike most spirits in this series who get their one moment of closure and fade away peacefully, Darmani's resolution isn't a single act. It's ongoing. Link literally puts on his face and becomes him. He uses Darmani's punch barrages, his earthquake jumps, his raw Goron strength to do what Darmani couldn't. So Darmani doesn't really find peace. He finds a successor, someone to wear his body and finish the mission he died trying to complete. His entire afterlife is watching a kid from another world do the job he trained his whole life for. That's not closure. That's a ghost handing someone else the keys and hoping they don't crash. But if Darmani's story hit you in the chest, the next one might be even worse. Because at least Darmani died on a mountain fighting for his people. Mikau died floating in the ocean, completely alone. Mikau was a rock star. Guitarist for the Indigo Goes, the most famous band in all of Termina, known for performing the Ballad of the Windfish. He was also recognized as a Zoran hero. The guy lived on stage and fought off stage. Two identities, one legend. And then Link finds him floating face down in the water near Great Bay. Here's what makes this one hurt. Mikau doesn't just die, he's conscious for it. He knows exactly what's happening to him. He's not some corpse you stumble across with a journal entry explaining what went wrong. He's alive, barely, and he looks at Link and essentially says, "Please, heal my soul." That's his final request. Not avenge me, not save my people, heal my soul. Link plays the Song of Healing, and Mikau's last vision before passing is his bandmates. The Indigo Goes together again, performing one final time. A guitarist who spent his life making music, dying to the sound of it playing in his own head, which is, not ideal. His spirit gets sealed into the Zora mask. That's the trade. A person's entire existence, every note he ever played, every wave he ever fought, compressed into a piece of equipment for a kid on a time loop. Fans consistently call this the most bittersweet transformation mask acquisition in the series. And honestly, nobody's wrong. Darmani's death was tragic. Mikau's was devastating. He lived for music but died fighting, and the best anyone could do was turn him into a costume. But if you think a dying musician is dark, wait until you hear about the dead king still ruling over a cursed kingdom of corpses. King Icona. Most spirits in Zelda want your help. They ask nicely. They give you a sad backstory, maybe shed a ghostly tear, and then politely request that you go fetch something or play a song. Egos do Icona does not do that. Egos do Icona makes you earn every single word of exposition by trying to kill you first. He's the long-dead king of the Icona Kingdom, a mini-boss in Icona Canyon in Majora's Mask, and this fight is genuinely unhinged. During the battle, Egos can detach his own head, which then chases Link around independently, while his headless body keeps swinging a sword at you. His floating skull also breathes purple flames, because apparently decapitation wasn't dramatic enough on its own. The only way to put him down is by reflecting light off Link's mirror shield directly into him. But here's where the real weight hits. After you beat him, Igos doesn't disappear. He sits there and explains exactly why his entire kingdom fell. The curse plaguing Icona, the reason everything in this canyon is dead and restless. He lays it all out. Then he teaches Link the Elegy of Emptiness, a song necessary to restore light to the region. You literally had to beat the answers out of a dead king. He wasn't going to volunteer any of it. That's what makes him fascinating. He's not a ghost asking for closure. He's a boss fight that happens to contain the most important lore dump in the area, buried behind a skeleton who can throw his own head at you. But if a king forced into helping is strange, wait until you meet a queen who chose to come back entirely on her own terms. Queen Rutella. Most ghosts in this series come back because something went wrong for them. They were cursed, they were trapped, they had unfinished creative projects. Queen Rutila was publicly executed in front of her entire kingdom, and her response from beyond the grave wasn't vengeance. It wasn't rage, it was parenting. Let that sink in for a second. Queen Rutila ruled the Zora after her husband King Zora had already passed, carrying the weight of leadership alone until dark forces decided to make an example of her. They raided the village and killed her in front of everyone she'd ever protected. And when her spirit appears to Link in Twilight Princess, she tells him exactly what happened. They raided this village and, as a message to my people, executed me before them. But she doesn't dwell on it. She doesn't ask him to avenge her death. She pivots almost immediately to her son. Prince Rallis is falling apart. He's traumatized, grieving, refusing to accept the role he was born into. And Rutila's ghost looks at this situation and essentially says, I need you to make sure my boy is okay. Her unfinished business isn't about getting justice for her own murder. It's about making sure her son survives long enough to lead. That's it. Not closure for herself. She needs her kid to step up. This makes her the most politically invested spirit in the entire franchise. She's simultaneously a grieving mother and a strategic monarch, ensuring the line of succession doesn't collapse because her son is too broken to sit on the throne, which is, not ideal circumstances for a family conversation. But if you think a dead queen worrying about her son is emotionally heavy, wait until you meet a dead hero worrying about his entire legacy, the hero's shade. This one hurts because the hero's shade isn't some random ghost with unfinished business. He's you. He's the hero of time. The Link from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, grown old, died unfulfilled, and come back as a skeleton in ancient armor because saving the world literally erased him from history. Here's what happened. At the end of Ocarina of Time, Princess Zelda sent Link back to his childhood so he could live the life he never got to have. Sounds nice, right? Except it created a temporal paradox. In the timeline he saved, nobody remembers him. The battles he fought, the temples he cleared, none of it happened as far as anyone else is concerned. His reward for being the greatest hero Hyrule ever produced was a timeline where he's just some kid nobody's heard of, and that broke him. He grew old carrying combat wisdom that belonged to a future that no longer existed. Nobody to pass it on to. No students, no legacy, no proof he ever mattered. So when he died, his spirit lingered as a skeletal specter who could take the form of a white wolf, wandering Hyrule with exactly one piece of unfinished business: teaching. He appears in Twilight Princess to train the new Link in 7 hidden skills, special sword techniques representing everything he learned across 2 games worth of adventure. Every backslice, every helm splitter, every mortal draw is a piece of the hero of time's soul finally being passed on. His heroism created the paradox that cursed him. The only way out was making sure the next Link didn't suffer the same invisible death, which is, not ideal as a retirement plan. But if you think a hero haunted by his own legacy is heavy, wait until you meet a king haunted by his failure as a father. King Rome, the very first person you meet in Breath of the Wild, is a dead man. You just don't know it yet. After Link wakes up in the Shrine of Resurrection with 0 memories and 0 context, he stumbles outside and finds an old man sitting by a campfire. Just some weathered guy in a cloak, cooking apples, offering vague advice about the world. He teaches you how to chop trees, how to cook, how to not die in the first 5 minutes. Standard tutorial NPC stuff. Nothing suspicious at all, except this helpful stranger is King Rome Bosphorus Hyrule, the last king of the kingdom you're standing in the ruins of, and the father of the princess currently holding back the apocalypse with her bare hands. He maintained this disguise for the entirety of the Great Plateau. Every conversation, every nudge toward the shrines, every cryptic mention of the princess, all of it was a ghost pretending to be a nobody, so he wouldn't overwhelm a hero who can't even remember his own name. Only after Link completes the initial trials does Rome finally reveal himself, glowing and translucent, admitting that the princess he kept referencing was his own daughter. And here's where it gets genuinely tragic. Zelda sealed herself away with Calamity Ganon for 100 years. She's actively fighting every single day, using her sacred power to keep the world from ending. Meanwhile, her father's spirit can do exactly nothing. He can't fight. He can't protect her. He was a king, and now he's a glorified waypoint marker, entirely dependent on a confused amnesiac to save his child. His unfinished business isn't revenge or regret, it's helplessness, which is, not ideal. But if you think a father watching from the sidelines is painful, wait until you hear about the daughter who's been doing the actual fighting. Princess Zelda, every single spirit on this list needed Link. They needed him to play a song, swing a sword, or just show up. Princess Zelda in Spirit Tracks said no thanks to all of that. In 2009, Zelda herself became playable for the first time in a mainline game. Not because the developers felt generous, but because a demon named Malladus ripped her soul clean out of her body and moved in. Her physical form is walking around possessed by an ancient evil, and her spirit is floating next to Link going, yeah, that's my body. I'd like it back, please. Here's what makes her different from literally everyone else we've talked about. She's not dead. She's displaced. Her body is right there, just currently being piloted by a catastrophic demon king. which is, not ideal. But she doesn't sit around waiting for Link to fix it. She possesses phantom guardians to fight alongside him, and when the final battle arrives, she uses the sacred power of the spirits to take Malladus down herself. She participates in her own rescue. Every other ghost on this list was a passive presence, waiting for peace. Zelda demanded her body back and helped punch a demon to get it. That's the single most complete vision of what a spirit can be in this entire franchise. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.